Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Indy Real Estate Investing Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Tallman, and with me once again today is Brian Snider. Brian serves as the Chief Operating Officer at the Collective Genius. Welcome back to the show, Brian.
Yeah, excited to be back. So thanks for having me, Jeremy. So I feel like every time you and I talk, I'm like, we should just record this and it should be a podcast. But
that's right.
So there we go.
We're actually doing it. So this is going to come out in the first week or two of January. Let's look at 2025 in the rearview mirror now. How did 2025 treat you? What are your takeaways from 2025? Maybe from, your own personal development and just the real estate industry in general.
Yeah, so for me, good year. Real estate worked out pretty well for me. We bought a new primary home, my wife and I did. So moving up here in Carmel. So excited for that. So I was excited to where the market was and how I was able to negotiate some of the pricing and stuff for myself. So happy with that.
That's good.
But yeah, the market in general, and actually on our personally too, like we did pretty well with some funding we did and some lending that we did throughout the year. Some fix and flips, here in Indianapolis are pretty strong. So being able to work with some investors and fund their deals, that worked out really well for us this year.
That's great.
So things are going pretty well with that. And then I think that's just in general, I think the real estate market in Indy is strong. So there's still, you still hear the people that are waiting on the sideline for like, oh, I'm going to wait for the interest rate to drop, or, I'm going to wait for it to turn. Like, I don't, that didn't happen in 2025. I don't see it happen in 2026. Is it down a little bit? Is it like, is it back to kind of a little bit normal? I think 100%. But, I think it's what we saw in 2025, I think is what we're going to see in 2026. I really don't see too much of a change at all. I was, last week, I had the opportunity to kind of sit down a couple times with an economist from the John Burns' team, the co-author. I'm with him on the book Big Shift, and sit down and talking with Chris Porter was his name. That's what they're seeing too. I mean, they're looking at data from every angle of just every market across the nation and what's going on. But especially here, like in the Midwest, there's nothing in 2025, 2026 can be like 2025. And so the people that have adjusted and they're doing pretty well in 2025, I feel like they're going to do well in 2026 as well. So they're looking for, which I think that's what you want from a Midwest market and Indianapolis market. You just want the consistency. So I'll take that.
Yeah. That's what I was getting ready to say before you said it isn't that a nice thing that we're kind of like, because, when we first started, it was like, well, 2005 is going to be exactly the same as 2004 and so on and so on. Then housing crisis hit, and then that uncertainty just breeds all kinds of trepidation for investors to jump in. But I do think, this year, as we close it up, it's going to probably be duplicated in 2026. So I think that's a good thing, I think, for feared investors. So Brian, I brought you on here today because we had coffee 2 or 3 weeks ago and to talk about this idea of collaboration in real estate. And I'm guessing the point of Collective Genius is that, if I become a member of Collective Genius, then I would think most people, their goal is to surround themselves with very like-minded people who have felt their pain, people who have done things that they're trying to do, maybe even, which I think makes a lot of sense, to help accelerate the growth, break down barriers and things like that. It seems like the Collective Genius is probably like a true hub for collaboration. Is that right? Or do you have a different spin on that?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, that's the essence of the community, essentially, is to put you in a room or put you in a community, put you in a room, put you into a group so you can work together through that, or you can you can connect with people that have already been through it. Yeah. So I think that's really, and I'll add another aspect to that. So I think it's the people that have already been through it, the people that are going through it right now, and the people that aren't quite there yet. That you have an opportunity to kind of raise up a little bit, because, me as a former teacher, I really feel that like education is the highest form of comprehension. So there's been multiple times where I've been like, oh yeah, I do, I can help you out with that. And then I start doing it like, oh, well, actually I used to do that, but I don't do that anymore. I should probably start doing that again because I was working and things. But then then you're connecting with the people that are going through it right now. So you can kind of figure out hey, I'm building a rental portfolio here in Indianapolis. So you can talk to people that are doing that in St. Louis and Kansas City and Columbus, very similar markets, to see kind of what's going on and what's working for them. And hey, how are you marketing for tenants? How are you finding your contractors? How are you holding them accountable? All those things are pretty similar between the markets, with varying shifts. So being able to connect with other people like that is really important. And then connecting with the people too that have already been through it. I scaled from 100 doors to 500 doors, and being able to see what they did and what was that when did they have to make this hire or that hire, whatever it may be, I think is really important, and learning from their mistakes. I think the number one comment I hear from our members coming out of an event, and it's probably the number one thing I always want to hear, and hopefully I always do hear this, is that people always just say, like, I can't believe people are just this willing to help me. People are willing to open up their business and let me come visit or have a conversation with me. And that's what it's all about. So I'm a firm believer of collaboration over competition. I am a super competitive person. As you and actually before this call, you and I are talking Ohio State, Indiana, and
that's right.
The game, and do some battles here, hopefully in a couple more weeks. But I'm a big competitor, and I like to be the best, and I like to be number one. But the reality is that I know to get to that point, I need to be able to collaborate with others and play well in the sandbox with others too. And I think that's really where you can get to the next level, by learning from others, figuring out what works, collaborating with others, and really kind of, there's partner deals you can do, or little things, whether you're just learning from somebody else or, joining forces with somebody else to get bigger or do whatever you need to help scale, I think is really important. So firm believer of collaboration over competition.
Do you think collaboration is more important in real estate than other industries, or do you have a thought about that? Because, I'll say this, Brian, when Scott and I first started investing, there wasn't much out there. There weren't a lot of single family investors back then, not anywhere like there are today. There was an organization I talked about on here before called the ILA, the Indianapolis Landlord Association, which morphed into the CIREA that is today. Yeah. But back then, we were by far the youngest guys in the room. Everyone had bought all their homes like 25 years ago and weren't doing anything more. They were there mostly for socialization. Now, they would tell you, like, I had terrible luck buying there or whatever. They weren't like close vested, but it wasn't like people that were in growth mind and growth mode that were like trying to, that we could really use to accelerate our growth. So we didn't have that there. And I think today it's a lot different because there are a lot of organizations like yours that help in real estate. But how do you think about collaboration in real estate as opposed to other industries?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question. Thinking through that, my gut answer is that, like, I don't necessarily know if it is different or more needed in real estate than other businesses, because reality is, I think it's life and business in general. I think the more collaborative you can be, I think the better it is. I'll share a little teacher. I was just telling somebody this actually yesterday as well, and I kind of thought of it this morning. But like, when I was teaching at Christ the King here in Indianapolis, I was the only like middle school math teacher. So I didn't have, I was teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade math. There was nobody else in the building that I could have a conversation with about math, or, hey, what to do here, or, hey, what's a new strategy here, or a tip here. I didn't have anybody to do that with. So I started reaching out to some of the other, middle school math teachers in some of the other Catholic schools to kind of connect with them and be like, hey, what are you doing here? What do you, so having that collaboration just helped me as a teacher. And I think too, when you look at a lot of businesses, I know a lot of the times, there's a lot of times that you and I, Jeremy, we'll get together and we'll have a coffee and we'll talk. And it's kind of funny, like, we'll talk about real estate, but I think the essence of everything that we're talking about is really business.
Yeah.
We can talk about, hey, interest rates, or, hey, how to, underwrite a deal, or certain neighborhoods. There's definitely that part that plays into it. But I think when it comes down to it, it's really a lot of people that are running, real estate investing businesses, especially in that collective genius. I'll say a lot of these people have learned how to wholesale or flip or build a rental portfolio and grow it and do some unique stuff. And they've been able to make some money off of that. And then all of a sudden they realize, like, oh, I have a business. Like, I'm hiring people. I'm running this multi-million-dollar business, but I've never been to business school. So I need to collaborate with others and kind of work with each other and stuff like that. So I think I'll say that collaboration is very important, maybe not necessarily specifically in the real estate world, but I think in the entrepreneurial world for sure, because that's where people are usually just running and gunning, and they need that collaboration to work with others or learn from each other to help each other out. But the reality is that collaboration it's a life skill. When I go to church, I do better as a Christian when I'm in a life group and I'm working with others versus, trying to just read the Bible and do it on my own. So I think it's a life skill, but I think it's 100%. If you're a real estate investor, no matter what you're trying to do, if you're trying to grow a portfolio or trying to flip some properties, whatever it is, if you're able to collaborate with others, even if it's just like, you want to collaborate with your title company. You want to collaborate with your contractors. You want to be able to, find other people that are, like I said, too, kind of like find people that have been through it before, or people that are going through it right now, or people that are trying to do what you're doing. So I think it's really important.
Yeah. I guess I can talk about like, our real estate business versus our property management business. And in the property management space, especially let's call it last 10 years, there's been a lot of collaboration going on in our industry because our industry all of a sudden has a lot of money in it, meaning funds have come in and invested, private equity have bought property management companies because there's just so many single family homes that are rentals now. So I think we've been able to take our business further than maybe have taken our rental business in some ways because of that collaboration, because there's so much, people are so willing, like you mentioned, if you go to a property management conference, people are for the most part, open books there. They'll tell you like how they dealt with pain points, how they've made changes to their leases or management agreements that have been beneficial, new programs they've instituted. So there's a whole lot of that going on. And I think it's really helped Scott and me to build our business smarter, because it's hard to have every idea as you scale. You just don't know what you don't know. And so you go out there and find people that are similar size or bigger, if possible. Always makes sense to me of, I'm here today, you're here, you're there, you were here 6 months ago or a year ago. How did you overcome this? And there's so much power in that because you're talking the same language, the pain points are the same. And so that collaboration has made a world of difference in our property management business for sure. So
I mean, it's such a great way to look at it, and it's what's needed, because as you know, the reality is that there's nobody in my family that I can talk to about like what's going on. Like I can't talk to my parents about like lending money to fix and flippers or building a rental portfolio or holding a note portfolio. Like they don't understand that, or most people, old friend circle, like they don't. Most of my friends are real estate investors now, so I can't have that conversation, but. I think it's what's needed. That's what a lot of people are going through. Like, there's not many people in Indianapolis that you can have the conversation with about like the size of property, size of portfolio that you guys are managing.
Yeah.
Maybe, 2 or 3 people that can maybe have that conversation. Right. So,
right. Yeah, it's true. And you have to go outside the market to really find the most comparable. But so what do you think, Brian, is maybe some misconceptions? Because I'm sure some people are like, you know what? I've read some books, and I know a lender, and I know a realtor. I'm just going to go and do this. And what misconceptions out there that investors maybe have about, just trying to do it alone versus really building up a team and collaborating and, attending meetups and things like that? What do you think the misconceptions are?
Yeah, I think and I think people can 100% do it on their own and try to figure it out, but it's really, it's kind of what you can do on your own. And like you said, you just mentioned a little bit ago, you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. So you might be feeling like you're pretty successful and, doing it on your own and reading books and kind of figuring things out and doing some research, watching YouTube University, which a lot of people like to do now, which is fantastic. A great way to, educate yourself and get started in things. But until you kind of have the conversations with other people to figure out what's going on in your market or your industry, that's when you can really kind of figure out if you are doing well or not. If you have the certain KPIs that you can track and dig through. So you might be able to have the conversation of like, oh, hey, in this neighborhood, what are your rents at right now? Like, oh, wow, you're getting 20% more on rents than I now. Or, hey, your turnover time, maybe you're turning properties 5 days quicker than me. Like that's stuff that can take your business to the next level. Now, if you have 10 properties, it might not be the biggest game changer, but if you're, as you continue to grow or you continue to get better, like that's really what it comes down to, when you're able to collaborate with others to kind of see what is that. I always like to look at like, what's the thing that I'm going to do today to make myself 1% better than yesterday? Mm-hmm. I can do that, especially like in business. You're going to do that through collaborating with others. Like, oh man, Jeremy's getting this for rents, or I need to do better here, or I'm going to need to figure this out, or man, I'm spending 20% more on this contractor than Jeremy is over here. Like, man, I need to go out and make some connections and find some different contractors, whatever it may be. So until you go out there and start talking with other people, you don't really. We'll go back to, I was just saying, I'm a competitive person. Like, I need to know how well I'm doing compared to, not to kind of play the comparison game, but that's how I know if I'm doing things well or not, is seeing like, hey, am I am I comparable with what other people are doing within this market, or am I doing better than them, or, am I behind them or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I think that's great because I go back to property management again. There's an organization that we are members of called NARPM, stands for the National Association of Residential Property Managers, and they've really raised their game and they're starting to put out standards like
Yep.
metrics. This is how fast you should turn a property. This is how fast you should process an application. This is how fast, all these different things. And it's so great to know because they didn't just like make these numbers up. They took a lot of data from a lot of management companies, part of which we contributed some data as well. And so they came up with like, this is where the top percentage of property managers, this is what their metrics look like. And we have them. Like our goals are to hit NARPM standards or exceed them. So it does allow you, because of that collaboration, to say, this is what I'm doing now. Like here's, we have hundreds of KPIs that we track, probably too many in some ways, but we track a ton.
Yeah.
But these are the, 10 that really matter and really drive our business. And how do we match up from a national perspective? How are we performing against our peers? Because we don't know what we don't know. And it has, our staff are aware of those metrics, and it has helped raise our game because we're striving for something. We have very specific goals that we want to hit based on those NARPM metrics. So I'm sure, that happens all the time in collective genius. Like, wow, you're doing it this way. I need to get better. And here's how you get better. So a lot of that I'm sure happens.
Yeah, 100%. I always like to say too, and I always like to, the way I always like to look at it is like, who is, when it comes to like marketing, because, when you're running a real estate investing business or a, property management business, whatever it may be, like you're not just managing properties. You actually have a marketing business, a sales business, operations business. And that's it. Have these different little departments and businesses. So I'm always looking at like, hey, who has the gold standard for marketing right now? Who's the top 5% marketing? And I want to have conversations with them and figure out what they're doing, like what's going on. An example of this would be like, hey, over the last 3 years, a lot of marketing and lead generation has been changed from like outbound to inbound. Well, okay, so now how have people made that shift, and what are they doing now, and how does it affect personnel? Now it's okay. How is AI playing into all this? Which is that's a huge conversation across the board. And then figuring out, okay, who's the gold standard in sales? Who's the gold standard? Who has the gold standard operations? And what KPIs are we tracking? Are we tracking too many? What are the top 5 that I need right now? And how do I get my, then it's how do I hold the team accountable and all those things as well. So I always like to look at like, hey, who has the gold standard of this, and really kind of connecting with those people is really one of my favorite things as a member of CG. That's what I always look to do. And then as, run the operation now too, I want to make sure I highlight those people that are the gold standard, because they're the ones that can really bring, next level content to the industry.
Yeah, that's great. So Brian, you hit on it a little earlier, and I will say, like my first conference I attended, I'm like, ooh, don't know how much I want to share, right? How do people get around that? I mean, what do you see? Because I'm sure people go in there and they say, well, that's my competitor, that's my competitor, that's my competitor. I'm in their market, whatever. How do you, as COO and as a leader of some of this stuff, help reframe that mindset? Because it can be a problem, I think, in any room, in any industry.
Yeah, it definitely pops up from time to time. It can be an issue and from time to time, but I'll say this of like, I'm going to, like, I have a set of core values I live my personal life by. And we have core values that we go by in our business. And it's the same thing. Those core values extend to the industry, or to all the members. So the 700 members that we have in our community, it extends to that as well. And that number one core value that we have, it's actually one of my personal core values, and then in the business and then the membership as well, it's to be a go-giver. So to be in that room, to be a member of CG, you have to understand that, like, hey, you have to be a go-giver in some way. And if you are we like to call it, I don't know if this is an actual term or not, but a go-taker is what we like to say. So not a go-giver, go-taker, like you're going to kind of stick out, and you're going to stick out in that room, and you're going to kind of almost self-eliminate of what's going on. But there are multiple times where I have to have conversations of, with people like, hey, I'm not sure if I want to, share that or I do that. And, so there are some times where I have to like kind of figure out like, hey, maybe you don't share, 100% of it. Let's just share like 85% of it. Let's get people on the right track or get people there. But the reality is I don't think I've ever had a conversation with somebody that shared from the stage or shared in a breakout room or shared on a call and did something, and they were like, man, I really regret that I did that. I wish I would
Mm-hmm.
have done that because my competitor saw that or somebody else saw that. I haven't had that conversation, and maybe that does pop up and stuff, but for the most part, people are usually like, yeah, I'm glad I did that. I'm glad I shared that because I shared this and I got some great feedback on it. So I know how to improve it, or I know, hey, how to take it to the next level, or hey, I actually got some really good feedback on it. And now I can maybe I can build a separate little side business, like doing this or teaching this or
Yeah.
coaching this, whatever it may be too. So I think it's one of those things of, I, I tend to look at, I tend to look at businesses and entrepreneurs and owners when they understand that abundance mentality is usually when it's usually when their business takes off. It's usually when their
Yeah.
business goes to the next level versus when they're holding stuff a little bit tighter. It sounds like these seem to be the people that like can't quite get over the hump, or they're
Yeah.
just kind of waiting to get to that next level. So,
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things too that 100% believe that if you are a go giver, if you actually show that you have vested interest in other people and are willing to help, people are always willing to help you out as well.
Yeah.
So
It's reciprocal. There's no
yeah,
doubt.
I might have something that like, hey, I'm worried about sharing because it might, a competitor might hear it or something like that. But the reality is that like if I have something to share, I should, because I darn well have something that's not going well in my business, or maybe I need a little bit of help on. So if I have a give or something I can share, I also know that I have an ask. So I need something that I need to, kind of be reciprocal to kind of get some feedback back. So it's usually kind of the way we approach it of like, hey, if you have a give, have an ask along with it, and then you can, give some feedback, but also receive some feedback as well.
Yeah. So just to put Collective Genius in context, like you're not like the normal RIA, right? Though you're a paid membership. And what is the minimum level? Is it 10 to 15 deals a year that you have to
Yeah.
be
So you're going to be
producing or a
doing,
certain amount of revenue?
yep, 10 deals a year, or you're $250,000 in gross profit.
Gross profit.
So it's not necessarily it's not the newbies, but it's the people that know how to do some deals and make some money, but they don't quite have a business yet. They're not, maybe they're still like maybe they still have a W-2 and they're utilizing that and they need to get out of it, or it's just like they're doing everything in their business and they're ready to make kind of that first hire. Maybe they're bringing
Yeah.
a lead manager or a VA to help them out or something like that.
Yeah. So I'm just curious, there's at least a couple of investor meetups in Indianapolis, maybe more. What do you think separates like a the obvious thing with with your organization, the Collective Genius, is that you have to be already be performing, right?
Yeah.
So you don't have newbies in there. But I'm just curious for people out there that are thinking about starting up, like, what do you think separates those high performing masterminds instead of an event? And I've seen it, I think it's happening, events that turn into just a bunch of vendors sitting around, or people sitting around talking about horror stories and war stories about, man, you'll never believe what my tenant did last week. You'll never believe what my property manager did last week, or whatever. I mean, they can turn into that, right? There's just a ton of vendors. They're all kind of, taken from each other. They're not real productive. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, when it comes to anything that we're doing, we're very specific, and we spend, so my job, people always ask me like, well, what do you do as the COO of CG? You guys do, so many events throughout the year. You're just planning for events, so you just put those on, right? That seems pretty easy. Well, there's actually a lot of work that goes into curating that content, of knowing what's going on. A lot of conversations being had. We had our premiere event out in Oceanside, California last week. But before that event, basically over those 3 months preparing for that involved me working with 36 different speakers on helping them curate their content for making sure they bring in the highest level content to that event.
You worked with them. Interesting.
100%. Like, yeah, figuring out, okay, what's your, we'll go through like, hey, what's the purpose of this presentation? What are they hoping to get out of it? What's the 0 to 1 that somebody needs? So when they come out of this presentation, what's the 0 to 1 that they can take back into their business and impart? Or if it's certain like breakout session or a roundtable discussion, like we're curating that, what that discussion is. Like we're making sure that, throwing out different topics and really talking through them and figuring out like, hey, what is the question that's going to get to the root cause or the root answer of what's going on in people's businesses? So there's a lot of curation of the content that plays into it. But when it comes down to it too, if it's that there's certain people that are bringing that negativity or bringing something in the group, that's, not necessarily, I'm not going to say like, hey, we're going to kick them out or move them on, but it's let's reframe that. So it's not, if you have an issue in your business or something that you're maybe have a gripe about or worried about, well, let's figure out, let's not talk about, let's not sit there and gripe about it. Let's talk about what the root cause is. Let's figure out what's going on and let's get you a solution for that, or like get you the right connections to talk out of that. Or that's what it comes down to, where you have somebody that's just, sitting around like, I'm having a trouble with a tenant here. I'm doing this, or my property manager's got this going on, or I can't quite figure this out. Or this contractor was like, okay, well, hey, I hear you say that. Like, let's talk through that a little bit. Tell me a little bit more. Hey, I'm going to connect you with Jeremy. Jeremy was telling me a story. He went through this like 6 months ago. Let's connect you guys to have a conversation and see if maybe he can provide some insights for you to get, help you get out of that rut or whatever it may be. Then the key is like you're mentioning, like, hey, that it's not all vendors sitting around and kind of, talking through stuff. But we always look at like, hey, who are we want to make sure that we have a certain ratio that we like to go by, like, hey, there has to be a certain level of number or percentage of operators versus vendors.
Yeah, I like that.
That certain number of vendors gets to that level. It's like, hey, we're cut off. Like I have like full transparency. I have like 3 people that are ready to join CG tomorrow, but they're service providers, they're vendors. We're at that number that where it's kind of like, I don't know if I necessarily want to take on any more unless I get a certain, I need a couple more operators that can maybe let in one of them. And I mean, we're pretty careful with that. I want to make sure that like most of the people in the room are doing business or talking about business or can actually have the conversations at the level of whatever product they're in for us.
I think that's smart. I really do, because in the back to property management, the vendor room grows and grows and grows and grows every year. And the number of emails that I get, it's like, oh, I see you're attending this. And it's overwhelming. It's too much. It's like, I enjoy meeting some vendors because they do help our business, but I mostly enjoy meeting other operators that are similar size or bigger than us. That's where we find the real value in those conferences. So, Brian, go ahead.
Off, Jeremy. Sorry, but like just to add on to that, like we spend a lot of time like working with our vendors on like how to do a presentation. So even if a vendor does a presentation, like it's not a sales pitch. It's not like a vendor like, don't want to know about your business. Like it's more of like, what value can you bring? So if you are let's say you're a project manager, you have a project manager business that you run project manager for, real estate investors all around the country. Well, I don't want to know like how you get business and what you're doing and about your business. I want to know, hey, how are you holding your subs accountable? What tracking system are you using? What data are you using? How are you managing product? Like, so they're actually like giving a presentation as an operator would, not as a vendor would. I think that's really important.
Yeah, that's good stuff. So, Brian, your own personal development, and you have a lot going on still. Where has collaboration, do you think, helped you the most in your career? I'm just curious, was there I had a conversation about this with this guy and it put me on a different trajectory. I'm just curious if you had any of those kind of like breakthrough moments.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the thick of it right now, to be honest with you, we brought on a new CEO to the Collective Genius over the last 3 months, and I've just like really enjoyed, like she's led multiple businesses, taken multiple businesses to market and things. So now I'm learning from her of where it's like almost a masterclass on a weekly basis of how to be a better leader, yesterday I was in a meeting and I was like kind of shared with her, like, man, I was really kind of frustrated. I wish the meeting would have gone this way and it went this way. Well, she was like, hey, well, here's how I would handle that. Here's what I recommend you would do. So, just kind of giving me, insights too. I'm like, hey, I would have done everything the same way you did, but here's how you reframe it afterwards and prepare for next week and stuff. So that's where it is for me right now. And that's been a game changer for me of just having a different leader from a different perspective, from a different industry.
Yeah.
Coming into our business and kind of sharing with me and helping me grow as a leader and things. And so that's been really important, but that's when it's really been about for me of just connecting with people that have been able to, I've had some amazing mentors along the way, but to me, I've realized most of the mentors that I gravitate towards and that have really resonated with me and that have kind of got me to that next level each time is always geared towards leadership stuff. So yeah, always been a leader my entire life. I was always president of my class in high school. I was president of my fraternity in college, and I've always been a leader. And it's kind of funny. I always like to, you always hear the saying of like, oh, he's a born leader. I actually believed that for a little while. Like, oh, it's the born. Like, no, you have to work.
You have to work at it.
leader. It's a skill that you have to continuously maintain. So that's really what my focus is now. And I'm excited to work with, Michael on, some of our just on her helping me grow as a leader and be a better leader that it can be. And then I'm doing the same thing too, is that kind of that go-giver mentality of my operations manager that works with me. So she and we're going through a course together right now to where like, nice. Hey, she now has a direct report underneath her. Now she's not just managing projects. She's actually a leader now herself. So kind of working with her on that stuff. And I've made a ton of mistakes to the leader that I can impart onto her. And so that's the next game-changing thing for me, of kind of being able to like work with somebody else and really improve as a leader. And that's what I'm excited about it. And, of what that next path might look for me like as well.
Yeah. So is there one person maybe in I don't know if it's industry or just, I don't know, that every real estate investor, if they're out there listening, that you would say you need to collaborate with someone like this? Is there any, like, again, it could be someone that does, certain things in real estate, or someone that's done bigger things. I'm just curious, like you say, I need to collaborate with one person. Who's my first call?
That's a great one. There's a lot of different answers. So if I'm looking at, would you say specifically like here in Indianapolis, or?
Yeah, or just anywhere, just like, I don't need a name. I just need like, this is someone that this is the type of person you should really collaborate. It could be a lender. It could be a realtor. I don't know. I'm just curious. Like if I'm just like sitting here thinking I want to invest in real estate, who's my first call? Who do I need to collaborate with?
Yeah. So I think there's definitely I think you should 100% get that list of, hey, who are the five people that you're going to need to talk to. You're going to need to talk to, you're going to need to understand, if you want to understand real estate, you're going to need to have an agent that you're connected with and share insights on the market and what's going on and what's next. You want to be able to share, talk to a title company of, hey, just making sure you understand title, and when that commitment comes through and there's a judgment on there, what that means and what that looks like and how to go to the next, how to get that off there, or have that conversation of, there's just, not to get in the weeds on this, but I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday. It was like, oh, we had, the title commitment came back and there were like, 5 judgments on that, but we didn't know about that until the day before closing. Like, I was like, when did that commitment come over to you? I was like, well, we had it for like a month, but nobody told us about the judgment. Like, well, okay, because you didn't know how to read it or look
didn't know how to read it. Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And then a real estate attorney as well, just to make sure that you're, what's going on and you're in the know on what it is, or making sure you're doing everything legally. You have the right documents to make sure that you can do certain things. A contractor as well, just kind of understand like, hey, help you go through, do some property walkthroughs and go through with you and make sure you understand what's going on. But the ultimate one, I would say, if you're looking to collaborate with somebody, I'm going to answer this in 2 parts, Jeremy. Sorry, I know I'm going long on this one, but I would say the first thing, if you're new out there and you're like, hey, I want to get into real estate, there are so many different things that you can do within real estate. It's vast. So I would say is number one, just start connecting with anybody. Can talk to a wholesaler. Maybe that's what you want to do. Talk to a fix and flipper. Talk to a property manager. Talk to somebody that's just a landlord. Talk through anybody and everybody. Someone's a note investor. Talk with everybody to see maybe what is your niche. What would you maybe want to do? What would you be interested in? Then the second part of that is you maybe can get some clarity on like, hey, I want to do this, or hey, I want to focus on this. Is I'm going to go and find that mentor that is still an operator, that is still currently in the business 3 steps ahead of where you are right now. So that person that is that next level, like, man, I want to get to where Jeremy Tallman is right now, or hey, I want to get to where Nick Giuliani is right now. Like, I'm going to find that person that's kind of, levels ahead of me, and then connect with them. And then I think the next step is like, hey, I'm going to find somebody that's just 1 step ahead of me. Those are always the 2 that I'm always looking at. Who's that person that's just ahead of me? And then who's that person that's like way down the road? Who's my gold star that I'm going to go after and try to recreate their business?
That's cool. So for people out there, we mentioned that Collective Genius isn't for everybody because you have to be doing a certain amount of business. But if I want to get started and if I can't join Collective Genius, what should I do? Do you think? I mean, what should I do?
Yeah, I think, number one, I think it's figuring out what that path is, but then just start doing some deals, start working with somebody. That was my path. I started working with somebody. I didn't know anything about real estate when I started off. So I took a job with somebody that was doing it at a very high level with Brett Snodgrass, and being able to work with him, I learned a ton of stuff about real estate, and to the point where I probably could have gone out and ran my own wholesale business, versus him. But I wanted to continue to grow with him, and working with them and stuff. So I would say that's a route that I don't think a lot of people think about, but I would maybe go work for somebody and maybe you can continue to grow with them. And maybe there's a certain point where you go off and do your own thing or split off. And I've been in that scenario too, where I've hired somebody and I knew that there was a limited amount of time that we went off and done his own thing. Actually let him go. I was like, hey, you're at the level. Like, you don't need to work with me anymore. You can go out thing and move on. So that's what I would say is like, just whether you're going to do it on your own or with a part of a different team, is just find that person that you can learn from and then just go out there and do it. The biggest thing is, I think I'd say this for any industry, it's just take action. Just get going. So make sure when you're talking real estate, I want to make sure people are obviously financially sound and they can afford what they're doing and not dig too big of a hole in things. But it's literally go out there and take action. If you want to grow a rental portfolio, then go find your first rental property. It's not going to be a home run, but find that first, you hit a single just to start off with.
Absolutely.
And then get going. So more than likely, if you buy 5 or do 5 things, have 5 transactions, one of them is going to be a flop. You're going to make a mistake here or there, and but learning from that. But I think the biggest thing is just take action and get going.
And that's hard, right? I mean, we've done it. So it's like, why don't you just go buy it? But I've said this a lot. I think back to the first property we bought. It was terrifying in some ways. It's like, wow, we're actually doing this. And, we've talked to our buyers because we have a brokerage, and it's like, you'll never own property unless you make offers. Like, you have to make offers, right? I mean, you have to do it.
Number one KPI.
You got to make offers. And if you wait around, like anything, if you wait around for perfection, if you wait around for the perfect property that hits everything on the pro forma, you'll never buy it. And it's the same way with, if you wait to take your business to a different level until everything's perfect, you'll never take that next level, because you'll always rationalize that things aren't perfect. Let's wait a little bit longer. And so that's easy to say, but that is the reality of it. The only thing limiting you is you. Like, you have to go out and buy properties to get in the game. That's the only way to do it. So,
80% and done is better than 100% and not done.
100%. I love that. That's good stuff.
I got a question for you so we're talking about like, hey, taking action, maybe a little bit easier. How many people, like, when they buy their first rental property from you, or they buy their first rental and put it under your management, whatever it is, how many of those people like actually hang on to that property long term? Are they generally like that? Like, if somebody's buying their first rental property, this is maybe an assumption of mine, I'm going to assume that they're really probably going to trade up at some point within the next 5 years on that. So it's a great question. Our average contract is less than 5 years. So, what people choose to do after they leave us, there's a lot of different things they can do. Part of which is sell and trade up. And we do have that. It's a great question. I don't know, like, we're a terrible example of that, because maybe it's not terrible, but just how we've chosen to do things. We've kept our properties forever. The first property we ever bought, we still own it. Probably the first 10 properties we bought, we own 6 of them still. So it's an interesting question to know. But I think, again, talking about collaboration, had we had really good people that had kind of done what we'd done and that we felt comfortable collaborating with, or really just if they were there, would we have done more of that? Like, hey, we've owned this single family for X years. We had a model that we ran called return on equity. And when our equity got to a point where the return was lower than 30%, the idea was to trade it up, right? You had all this equity. You're not getting a lot of your equity anymore as far as return goes. So you take these 4 houses, you sell them, you transfer that into, something much bigger, and so on and so forth. Every few years, you're continually trading up. And I don't like to say I have regrets in real estate, because I'm very happy with what we've done and what we still own. But I do wonder, maybe it was that we didn't have anybody there just kind of driving us and challenging us and say, hey, you've owned this thing for too long. Your equity's too great. Trade it out. Let's go. Now, again, we started the management business, right? So that took a lot of energy. And so it's an interesting question. I don't know how to answer it exactly. There are some that definitely do it. There are some that, I know we've had some people sell properties today because they have kids that are in college. Yeah. Right. So, that happened this year, where it's like, I have this coming fall, my
son, daughter is going to be entering college. And so I start needing to sell some assets because that's why they bought them. And that's great. That's a great tool to pay for college if you want to do that. So I didn't answer your question, I'm sure, but I'm sure a certain percentage do intentionally do that.
Yes. So I was just thinking that it was back to the question we were talking through. Like a lot of time, when you start off, you're going to make some mistakes, and the reality is too, you can always trade up. You can always, that's the thing with real estate.
That's right.
You can always sell a property. So that's what comes into.
Yeah. And we've had those discussions with people that it's like, gosh, this property is just not performing. Yeah. It's not attracting great tenants. It's had a lot of maintenance. And it's like, well, we have plenty of examples in our portfolio where people have had great experiences, where the properties performed really well, the residents performed really well. Why don't we try to model that for you? And let's sell this. Let's get something else. Because, I like to think that time cures all mistakes in real estate purchases. But sometimes there's just some fundamental issues with the property that, there's a huge power line running in the back, or it's on a corner of two busy streets, or, things like that just make it inherently difficult for the property to be a success. And so you learn that. You're like, I'll never buy that again, or that type of property again. And that's again, like you just mentioned, they're not as liquid as a stock. But in this day and age, if you want to sell a property, you can sell it pretty quickly, if you have the right motivation. So, Well, Brian, I've enjoyed this. If people want to reach out to you and learn more about Collective Genius, how do they do that?
Yeah, they can reach out to me directly at just brian@thecollectivegenius.com. Happy to have a conversation. Or if you just want to know more information about them without talking to me, you can just go to the website, thecollectivegenius.com. You can see kind of the breakdown of the different levels of the different products that we have and what the investors are doing and things. But yeah, happy to connect with anybody. And like I mentioned on here, I'm a go-giver at heart. So I'd be more than happy to talk to anybody and help you out in any way I can.
Yeah. Well, again, thanks for being here. It's always nice chatting.
Yeah, appreciate it, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. We hope everyone has picked up some information that will help them in their investing. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another podcast. In the meantime, thank you so much for listening, and please stay invested in your investment.